Hi everybody, Mike Beer here with Friday's DRF Race of the Day. Race number 8 at Aqueduct will be the race of the day. Let's pull up the entry card for this race right now. Entry level allowance race for older horses. It's going to go 6.5 furlongs on the main track. Big field here, 13 horses entered. A lot going on in this race. Horses coming from a lot of different directions, switching surfaces, and also plenty of speed in this race. It doesn't feel like you can always count on fast paces developing around here, but it feels like this race could get contested early. And along those lines, let's take a look at the Timeform US pace projector real quick, because Timeform US is calling for a red bar situation. That means fast pace, and they do have number 2 Foolish Ghost out there on the early lead. That's a pretty difficult projection to argue with. Foolish Ghost is a very fast horse. He's one of several New York breds in this open entry-level allowance race. And Foolish Ghost, speed is his game. He wants to be out there on the early lead. He's won 3 of his last 5 races. He comes into this spot in really good form for trainer Ray Handel. He's going to be a factor from start to finish in here. And we'll just see if anybody can keep up with him early, and if anybody really wants to challenge him early. The number 12, More Grateful, also has speed, and it feels like, especially in his recent races, he's really been more focused on using that speed. So I would suspect that he will go forward once again in this race. He's coming off of a career best effort, winning last time. He chased Foolish Ghost to no avail 2 starts back, so we'll see how serious they want to go after that horse early. They have the 7, Spiteful Kitten. He's a big long shot. He does have some speed. I don't suspect he's going to be fast enough to go with some of these horses early. They have him forward as well, though. Number 11 ahead of plan, and number 13 are another couple of horses in here who really could be factors as far as the pace goes in here. Both of those horses have concentrated more on turf racing lately, but they also have dirt credentials in their past. They both have speed. I can see them both trying to get forward position in this race, and if they do indeed try to get up there and be part of this pace, then there's certainly a way to look at this race. I think this could be a fast pace and set this race up for some horses who want to sit a little bit. Let's just try to run down some of the contenders in this race before we get to the picks. And I do want to start with Foolish Ghost. He's 9-2 second choice on the morning line for this race, and he's just a horse who makes a lot of sense. Again, he's won 3 of his last 5 races. He's can be a little inconsistent. He won't always show up with his best race, but when he gets the trip that he wants, which is right out there, being able to set the early pace, he's a really tough customer in some of his races, and his recent form suggests that he's a major player in this race. As we already mentioned, he 2 starts back, he won a race over New York breds, going 6 furlongs at Belmont Park. He defeated More Grateful that day. Let's take a look at the replay of that race. This is October 3rd, and this is, Foolish Ghost doing what he wants to do. He used his speed in this race. He got clear on this field around the turn, and he's just digging in very gamely through the stretch, and he's going to hold on to the end. This was his 2nd win in a row, and 3 out of 4 at that time, and he was stepping up off the claim out of a 25 claiming race win in this race that we're looking at right now. So this is, a very good performance. It's a career best 89 buyer for Foolish Ghost in that race as a 5-year-old. And he came out of that race in his next start at Belmont Park. It was on relatively short rest on October 30th. He faced open company allowance races as he will today, and he ran well again. He had the speed in that race. He got to the lead, but an upwardly mobile and lightly raced horse and Cost Basis was able to keep up with him. And Cost Basis at the end of the day was just too much horse for Foolish Ghost, but he finished a good 2nd that day. That was on a sloppy track, and it feels like getting back over fast dirt, if nothing else, will help this horse. He is a major contender in this race. The number 3 is another New York bred, Charlie McCoy. This horse is going to be a price in this race. He's got the credentials to contend with a field like this one. He's a horse who really seems to like Aqueduct. During last year's winter meet, he was just coming back off of a long layoff sort of towards the end of 2019. He got 2 races in, and they weren't necessarily his best performances, but he faced Free Enterprise in the first of those off of the long layoff. Then he came back in December, right at the end of December, going 7 furlongs, and he ran a good race, 89 buyer. He wound up 2nd best that day to the caretaker, and then it was another layoff for him. He came back in October at Belmont going 7 furlongs. He ran fine, got a pretty good trip in that race, tracking the pace. He made a short lead in the stretch, but he never changed leads, and he just couldn't hold on at the end. He was really no match for the 1-2 finishers in there while finishing 3rd, but all in all, off the layoff, I thought it was a pretty good place to start. And he's got races that contend. He's another horse who likes to be forward in his races. I wonder if that will really work for him in here. But he's got races to be a contender. The 6, Morning Breeze, is another New York bred, another horse who has races that would contend in here. And as opposed to some of the others, he doesn't need the lead. That's a good thing for him. The problem with Morning Line is he just never wins. 35 career starts on the way into this race, 4 wins, 10 seconds and 10 thirds. So he's settled for minor awards in 20 of his 35 races. That's a real problem for me. This is certainly a horse that, at a big price, if nothing else, you could sort of look at maybe using underneath some of the other horses in here, because he does have speed but doesn't need the lead, and he can be around. Number 9 is Money Ride. This is a horse who's, sort of an interesting case in here. He's stepping up in class. This is a much tougher race than the ones he's been competing in, but if you go back to the last winter meet here at Aqueduct, this horse was getting into good form, sort of end of 2019 into early 2020. He won a couple of races over this Aqueduct main track in blowout fashion, and he held his own in some tougher spots as well without winning. And then he left town shortly after. That's the second of those wins. He spent some time up in Canada racing on synthetic and turf, and he's been back in New York now for his last 2 starts with a trainer change to Mike Maselli, who just does a great job, and all his horses seem to run. And Money Ride has come back with the 2 best performances of his career in his last 2 starts. Both of them wins. He defeated 3 life claimers, 2 starts back very easily from just off the pace with an 83 buyer. He came to Aqueduct for his most recent start, won very easily again, taking that race over early and never looking back. 87 career best buyer for that win. So he's in really good form right now. He doesn't need the lead. We'll see how he handles the step up in class. He could be a fair price in this race. Number 10 is Informative. This is a horse who's 1 for 18 on the way into this race, but he's actually run some good races. They've, done a lot of racing him over his head in his career, which is something I'm not a fan of. They've won him in several tough spots. It just feels like he really hasn't had the best chances to make his overall record look better than it is right now. But this horse has run some good races, and more than anything else, I think what you would like about Informative is, he's just a horse who wants to sit back and make a run into a pace, and he should have a pace to close into here. He's 20-1 on the morning line. He's coming off another horse in here, coming off a career best 85 buyer last time, going 7 furlongs at Laurel in a stakes race. He looks like a pretty nice fit in this race, and he might get a trip. I could see using him somewhere. We talked about ahead of plan a little bit. This is a Chad Brown-Klarovich stable horse who has been racing on turf lately. His last 3 starts this year have all come sprinting on the grass. He's won 2 of those and finished a very close 3rd last time when they jumped him up to an entry-level allowance race. This horse is in good form right now. He is a horse who has speed, and it feels like he wants to be forward in his races. And then you add in the fact that you don't know what you're going to get as they switch back to dirt with him here, but it's at least worth pointing out with this horse that he began his career on dirt, and it feels like, at that time things just weren't going very well for him. He debuted only 1 start as a 2-year-old on dirt at Saratoga. He ran great that day, 88 buyer speed figure, finishing second to Endorsed in a really strong maiden special weight at Saratoga. He didn't get another start in as a 2-year-old. He didn't come back until June at Belmont as a 3-year-old last June, and finished second on a day where he was chasing 3 and 4 wide on a day when the rail was the place to be. So it feels like he has a little bit of an excuse that day. And he's only run on dirt once since then, and that was off the layoff back in July at Saratoga. So this is a horse who could be dirt up. I'm not sure how good he is. I don't really trust him that much, and it's the fact that he goes for Chad Brown and Klarovich usually means that it'll be a shorter price than he should be. But if for some reason that he drifts way up in price, I could see maybe just taking a shot that he actually can transfer his recent good form over to dirt and be a player in this race. Number 12 is More Grateful. Let's take a look at him right now, because we're going to look at his most recent race. This is on November 15th at Aqueduct. It's going this distance, 6.5 furlongs. It's a career best effort for this horse. This horse, to me, I've always been a fan of his. I always felt like he had a lot of potential, and I thought he was dirtied up going into this race. As you can see, he wins very easily. He kept right up with the pace, took it over on the turn, and he's never really threatened through the stretch as he clears his New York bred conditions in this spot with a 95 buyer. He was a great price in there. I thought a little bit overlaid at 5-1. And you'll probably take shorter now as he steps into a tougher field of open company horses. But I just think this horse is good. I like his recent form. I think his recent form is, in fact, better than it looks. The question is, what kind of price will he be coming off of that, field best 95 buyer? And then what kind of trip can he get? Because as we already sort of mentioned, 2 starts back, he chased Foolish Ghost around the track and never really could get to that horse before tiring and finishing 4th that day. So does he chase that horse again? Does he try to back off him a little bit? This is a horse, More Grateful, who has been effective without the lead in the past. It does feel like recently they've decided to use his speed, and it's worked for them. But he doesn't need the lead necessarily to be effective. I think he's a major player in here. In a lot of ways, the horse to beat. I'm just not sure how short a price I would take on him. Bust and Shout is another horse. Switching over to turf, he's in very good form right now, sprinting on the grass. But he's another horse who has been racing on turf lately, but has the back dirt form that suggests he could perhaps be a contender in here. He's won 5 of his 12 career starts on the main track. That includes 2 starts back at Belmont when he got rained off to a sloppy main track and wired a field of New York breds. So he's a contender. We'll see what kind of trip. He's got the far outside post, and he's a horse who likes to show his speed. And, those kind of things could really work against him in this race. But he also feels like a horse who could be a price in here. And we're going to take a look at one more horse now that we skipped over earlier, the number 4, Edge of Fire, because he's going to be my top pick in the race. And it's a little bit of a leap of faith. But I just want to give this horse one more chance here. He's very lightly raced as a 3-year-old, only 5 starts behind him so far. I want to show the replay of his career debut. We're going all the way back to February here at Gulfstream Park. It's the first start for this horse. Just a really, really impressive debut win for this horse. It didn't come back that fast with a 67 buyer, but again, it's February 1st for a horse who just turned 3. You can just see how easily he wins. He just sat right in behind horses for a very long way. You could tell Jose Ortiz always had horse underneath him. He finally wheeled him clear in the upper stretch, and this horse basically wins it on his own. That's a ridden out debut. Really, really nice performance. It sort of pointed this horse out as a runner of some potential. He's got pedigree behind him. He's very well connected. And after that race, he actually ran well, I thought, in his next few starts. They tried to stretch him out, which isn't surprising. He's by Curlin. But he finished a really good second, going a mile in his second career start behind Money Moves. Then he finished 3rd in his next race, also going a 1-turn mile, another race where he hit the gate at the start and he just sort of maybe wound up a little bit further off the pace than he wanted to be. But all in all, I thought that was an okay performance. He got a layoff after trying a bit of a longer race in June in a race where the pace just totally fell apart and this horse was up close to it. And then he came back last time off of a little bit of a layoff on October 30th, caught a sloppy track, chased the pace that was being set by Foolish Ghost, and he just got tired in the stretch. I'm not sure that he loved that wet track. He was also off the layoff there. He's just the kind of horse, and we can put the picks up there now because he is going to be my top pick in the race. Edge of Fire. I'm going to put him over More Grateful in here. I just want to give this horse one more chance, especially if the morning line is close to right. David Aragona made him 10-1 on the morning line. And I just think if he's going to be around that price, I want to give him one more shot. Back on faster in a race that has some speed in front of him, and he's already shown that he can sit off a pace and make a run. I think all those things will work for him. And if he takes a step forward and runs back to the potential he showed early on this year, I think this horse could be a player in here and maybe go off at a very fair price and getting the job done here. So I'm going to take Edge of Fire on top. It's Friday's DRF race of the day at Aqueduct, race number 8. The approximate post time is 3:45 Eastern time. Good luck.